Well, for the first time ever, all 13 of Canada's premiers are in Washington, D.C., this as part of a joint mission to stave off those tariff threats from the Trump administration.
Let's listen in. Dominic Leblanc is now speaking.
Vers possiblement cette discussion, mais nous croyons que c'est pas réaliste avant le 1er avril, la date que M. Trump lui-même a donnée comme un devoir à M. Leblanc d'entreprendre une révision de l'ALENA, advenant la décision des Américains de le faire. Évidemment, nous serons très prêts. Nous croyons que c'est un moment important aussi d'avancer les intérêts économiques du Canada. Mais dans les prochaines semaines, la priorité, c'est d'éviter les tarifs douaniers et de voir comment on peut structurer une entente économique.
Minister, is diplomacy working, though, in the sense that, I mean, you have a the president makes unilateral decisions, and that changes the goalposts, as Premier Ford was saying yesterday. Are you concerned about that? I mean, is this just a quixotic quest being done here?
And Mr. Premier, could you step to your right?
Premier.
Geez, I've got a new job. I saw the Premier of New Brunswick. She was upstairs earlier. I don't look like her at all. So I'm not pessimistic. I am optimistic by nature. I'm encouraged by the conversations we've had with Mr. Leblanc. We're also seeing the economic policy advisor at the White House with Mr. Leblanc today. We see this as very positive. President Trump will make the public statements he makes. He'll organize his government the way he wants. Our job is to defend Canada's economic interest and to deal with the elected government that's in place in Washington and be as constructive as we can, because we're convinced that there's so much more we can do economically and in terms of security, national security, border security together, than if we're spending time figuring out who imposes what tariff on whom. So we believe also that the American business interests will be able to advocate what we think is a solid argument that we're going to continue to make to Mr. Leblanc about the benefits of doing these things together instead of looking to tariff one another.
What role do you think that the defense spending has on this?
It's just like an auto. Everybody's yelling at the same time.
Every act of diplomacy that the federal government, every act of diplomacy that the federal government and the premiers put forward is met by an act of aggressive tariffs. So the point is it possible that you can pull the trigger on those retaliatory tariffs early? Because it appears that the White House, the Trump administration, may only understand an act of, I guess, force.
No, we're not looking to go ahead of the United States in some kind of tariffs. We don't think tariffs are the way to proceed. So we're certainly not going to do anything before the Americans make their ultimate decision. And what the Americans have said to us privately and what they've said publicly is that we have a number of weeks to work together. And President Trump's words were very precise: to structure an economic deal with Canada. So that's exactly the conversation that we're going to continue today. But our focus is on avoiding the tariffs and strengthening the economic partnership. So that wouldn't be particularly constructive as an approach in the next few weeks.
Dans le contexte où l'on sait que M. Trudeau quitte, François Legault a l'impression que le leadership du Canada est affaibli. Vous lui répondez quoi?
Moi, ma conversation avec lui, avec M. Legault, il y a quelques moments, était très constructive, très chaleureux. Nous avons bien travaillé avec les premiers ministres de toutes les provinces et les territoires.
Premiers from all the provinces and territories. For us, Quebec is an essential partner and a leader in these economic conversations, whether on aluminum, and that's a perfect example. But is the leadership weakened? Listen, we're the elected government, so we don't spend our time thinking about whether Mr. Legault thinks the government is weakened because there's an election next year or Andrew Furey is here. I understand that argument, but for us, it's not very constructive. We have an important task ahead of us. If we hide under the desk because there's going to be an election in 2025, then imagine what kinds of questions you would ask us. Why are you hiding under the desk? You're on the Ski-Doo trails and not doing your job. I love my job, and this is an important moment for the country. We have an extremely positive relationship with Mr. Legault on those issues, and we will continue to do the work that is required. Canadians will have a chance to go to an election.
How much do you think this is perhaps a personal vendetta against Mr. Trudeau? Like, do you think that President Trump's seeming dislike for Mr. Trudeau is driving any of this punishment of Canada?
I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't spend my time imagining what motivates people. I have a job to do as Canada's finance minister to try and strengthen the economy of Canada. Our most important economic relationship is with the United States. It has been a source of prosperity and security for both countries for decades. The Americans chose a new administration that has views on tariffs and what it means for their economy. So our job is to make Canada's case that we're much stronger working together as economic partners than applying tariffs on one another. We have a number of weeks to make that argument, and that's the main focus of what we're doing, and we're not spending our time imagining the motivations of anybody. It's not particularly constructive.
Ambassador, one question for you, Ambassador. Could you... Ambassador, do you think that this thank you very much, Minister. Do you think that these economic threats coming from the Trump administration is a way of securing more concessions from us in this new economic deal? And what can Canada offer exactly? What are they asking for, in your opinion?
I think that President Trump is using tariffs for a variety of reasons. He's someone who has been a big fan of tariffs as a policy tool in his last administration, in the lead up to this administration, on the campaign trail. He said it would be a tool that he would use with everybody, and he is using it. He's using it, yes, as a negotiating leverage point, but also I think he's very keen on raising revenue for other objectives that he has, and he is often talking about using it for that purposes. So there's a variety of different reasons. I think the job for Canada is to demonstrate, and it's good that the premiers are all here. This is the first time in history that all 13 provincial and territorial leaders have been in Washington at the same time. Our job is to demonstrate in as much granularity as possible across all regions of this country what the relationship with the United States means for Americans. So what benefits they get from it. So in order to change the benefit calculation of the White House and the President with regards to the imposition of those tariffs. So
So can you just clarify who you're meeting with? Mr. Leblanc, and you said an economic advisor as well? So.
Yeah, we're seeing the Director of Economic Policy at the White House and Mr. Leblanc.
All right, but listening in as Finance Minister Dominic Leblanc and Canadian Ambassador to the U.S. Kirsten Hillman answer questions from a pack of Canadian reporters that are curious about the meetings taking place in Washington today. Such high-stakes meetings, so much history here. All 13 of Canada's premiers are there trying to tackle and sort of turn around the Trump tariff threats, making the case that all countries benefit without these tariffs in place. We'll see where it goes. Finance Minister Dominic Leblanc talks about being an optimist just in general, and he tries to come in there with a very optimistic look at this, but a lot of Canadians on this side of the border, when we're seeing the news, just seem so dire. So we'll see what they can pull off and how they can convince Americans, specifically the Trump administration, about what from Canada's side needs to change.